Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Up in the Air. I'm Ryan Breton.
And I'm Meredith Fish.
Now, Meredith, how about this cold weather? It has been more like January than November the past couple of days.
I know, it's so true. It has not been fun, and thankfully Hunter will be here later with details on whether or not this cold will let up.
Now, there are some positives to the cold, and that has to do with shopping. We'll have a conversation on the connection between retail and weather patterns with members of the Weather Risk Management Club.
But first, let's get started with a look at the latest news and information from the Weather Enterprise and Climate World. Here's this week's Update in the Air. The former super typhoon Nuri has been recorded as the most powerful storm in the Bering Sea. As it moved between Alaska and Russia, it lost all of its tropical characteristics and underwent rapid intensification. Last Friday, the Ocean Prediction Center analyzed the central area of low pressure to be 924 millibars, compared to Hurricane Sandy's lowest pressure of 940 millibars. Before modern times, there are no records in this area, so scientists may never know if this is a record or not. Waves were as large as 45 feet high, and hurricane-force winds were felt across the regions, as gusts were recorded at 97 miles per hour. The Arctic air felt over much of the United States is due to the buckling of the jet stream from this storm.
It's been a cold November so far in the Great Lakes region. While cold weather certainly isn't unusual during this time of the year, it is very unusual for ice to appear on any of the Great Lakes until the month of December at the earliest. On Sunday morning, however, a layer of ice was visible on Lake Superior near Ashland, Wisconsin. This appearance of ice is several weeks ahead of time. In fact, climatological data for ice on the lakes does not begin in most places until December 1st. Last winter, the epic cold snaps during January and February especially helped lead to the second largest ice extent on record for the Great Lakes as a whole. This summer was quite a bit below normal for the Great Lakes region, and the belief is that the extended ice cover last winter and the slow melt during the spring months helped to lead to the colder than normal temperatures. Below normal temperatures remain in the forecast, as Hunter will discuss coming up in the Climate Outlook.
Honeywell's IntuView 3D weather radar will make analyzing weather in flight a lot easier. The radar analyzes data from 17 different angles at once, showing all of the weather in front of the plane from the ground up to 60,000 feet. From a pilot's perspective, it's a simpler radar to use and requires less work during the route. This technology should make planes safer and reduce weather-related delays, as airlines will be able to fly more accurately around bad weather. With the radar fitting into the nose of the plane, this radar will be easy to test and eventually implemented into big airlines.
On Monday, the Obama administration unveiled a plan to help American cities and towns deal with the impacts of extreme weather attributed to climate change. A task force of governors, mayors, and local leaders drafted a report for the White House with recommendations on how the federal government can help local communities respond to extreme weather. A website known as the U.S. Climate Resilience Toolkit, available online at toolkit.climate.gov, has been developed by NOAA to, quote, enable decision makers to take action to boost their climate resilience using data-driven tools, information, and subject matter expertise to make smarter decisions. This is all part of the president's climate action plan, which analysts say may be harder to implement through Congress following the results of the midterm elections.
The African Climate Policy Center is using the Tracking, Adaptation, and Measuring Development Framework to show whether providing information based on climate research will curb crop and livestock losses. The center works with governments to improve the collection of climate data and scientists' capacity to manage it. Results from this experiment, which will show whether the improvements make a difference in people's lives, are expected to be available in the first quarter of 2015. This project is one of several evaluation systems designed to assess whether techniques to truly manage climate risk truly help scientists adapt to climate change. The evaluation will even include structured interviews with farmers about why they made particular adaptations, and really will focus on what climate information can do for the agricultural sector.
NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, located in Greenbelt, Maryland, has released new simulations of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere. These simulations were generated by NASA's computer model, the GEOS-5, which was developed by scientists in their Global Modeling and Assimilation Office. The images produced by the model are extremely high resolution, more than 64 times the resolution of global climate models. The colors on the images represent a range of carbon dioxide concentrations from 375 parts per million in dark blue to 395 parts per million in light purple. Take a look at this 30-second simulation of emissions here in North America in February of 2006. It almost appears as though you are watching a simulation of weather patterns, not carbon dioxide. This simulation makes it quite clear that our atmosphere and synoptic scale weather patterns can impact the movement of carbon dioxide emissions. The westerlies are quite evident, carrying the CO2 eastward over the Atlantic with time. Similar simulations have been produced with the hope of supplying scientists with a better understanding of the movement of carbon dioxide after it is emitted into the atmosphere. And that is Update in the Air for this week. We'll be right back after this with our risk report. Welcome back now to Up in the Air.
It's time for our risk report from Penn State's Weather Risk Management Club. Joining us now are Jeff Schmidt and Miranda Waldman.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Ryan and Meredith.
Why don't you tell us a bit about how weather affects retail?
Colder weather has definitely made its way into much of the United States. It is now that time of year where people are turning up the heat, digging out those extra blankets, and reaching for their coats, hats, and gloves. Sales around this time of year often follow an upward trend due to the approach of the holiday season. But what most people do not realize is that the retail market is heavily affected by the weather. As a simple example, consider a movie theater. Which type of day do you think would bring in more business? A warm sunny day or a cooler rainy one? If you chose the rainy day, you would be right. After all, they aren't called rainy day funds for nothing.
Now, with the colder temperatures approaching, what is the outlook on sales for retailers?
The colder weather we are currently experiencing puts consumers right where retailers want them. Looking at the graphic, one in terms of really generating early demand for the holidays.
Now, what would happen if the weather pattern changed and, for example, we experienced a warm trend around this time of the year?
It is key for retailers to know what type of weather is approaching. In a cold trend like this, it is very important for retailers to get shoppers buying cold weather gear. But if warmer weather moves in like you said, companies can lose money. When warm temperatures extend through the time period that companies stock their shelves with winter gear, it can lead to markdowns on products. It is much harder to convince consumers to buy something at full price when they can get it at a discounted price, so this can cause a large drop in profit.
According to CNBC, 3 large department stores, Macy's, Kohl's, and JCPenney, all reported weak sales for the 4th quarter of this year so far. All 3 mentioned warm temperatures as a large factor causing this. While the weather is definitely not the only contributing factor to sales, it definitely plays a large part. Executives at 2 of the companies additionally said that once the weather got cooler across much of the United States, sales began to improve.
Now, Jeff, we see that temperature plays a large role in the retail market. What about other weather factors like precipitation?
That's a great question, Ryan. As we mentioned, colder temperatures around this time of year can be very beneficial to retailers. But if the cold temperatures come along with snow, it would be a completely different story. According to ShopperTrack, the amount of severe snowstorms last holiday season contributed to a 14.6% decline in retail traffic. While the colder temperatures bring shoppers out, snow can be sure to drive them away.
That is why it is very important for retailers to capitalize on this current weather pattern. The Arctic blast has lots of potential to generate high-margin sales and give retailers a boost going into the holiday.
And thanks so much for joining us, Jeff and Miranda.
Thank you for having us.
We're proud to represent the Weather Risk Management Club.
We'll be right back after this.
Welcome back to Up in the Air.
Now, Meredith, we mentioned at the beginning of the show, but it has been really cold out there lately, really unusual for November, and you didn't have your winter coat here.
No, I forgot to bring it home or bring it back to school. I left it and was waiting for all this cold weather to hit us after Thanksgiving, which is more typical than it is now.
Right, exactly. Well, maybe Hunter has some better news for us as we approach Thanksgiving next week and this week's Climate Outlook.
Well, I sure do hope so. And here's Hunter Williams with your Climate Outlook for next week.
Thank you, Ryan and Meredith. Now, after a couple of very chilly, very wintry days across parts of the East and the Midwest as well, snow coverage is at a premium here early on in November. As you can see, much of the United States covered in snow right now. In fact, 50% of the United States is in fact covered. That is well above average for this time in November. And you can't see it on this graphic, but also worth noting some ice beginning to form on Lake Superior. That too is well ahead of schedule. Normally this does not occur until early December and into the middle parts of December. So winter well ahead of schedule here as we go through the interior parts of November. Now, as far as the temperatures, as we extend throughout the next couple of days here, early on in the week, pretty mild, but as you can see, getting towards the holiday weekend, a little bit of troughing through the East Coast is allowing some colder air to slip southward, so the temperatures will dive as a result of that. Now, what that means for the temperature outlook, we will be above average through parts of New England here, but as you can see, stretching eastward, they will be below normal, and through the southeast, in fact, far below normal, through parts of Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and through Louisiana and Arkansas as well. Now, pushing out west, a different story. The same areas that have been dealing with these above normal temperatures through the past couple of weeks now, once again above normal through coastal California, stretching up through Oregon and into southern Washington as well, these drought-stricken areas. Now, as far as precipitation, the East Coast still seeing plenty of precipitation, in fact, well above normal precipitation likely through parts of New England, the same areas seeing these above average temperatures. Now, this is still in effect through parts of the Midwest as they will see above normal precipitation as well. Pushing out west, the same drought-stricken areas will be below normal once again. This beginning to sound like a bit of a broken record, but it's what's happening out west, and these continuing through parts of Southern California and Arizona and Nevada here. So these drought-stricken areas continuing to get no relief from this drought. Once again, I'm student meteorologist Hunter Williams. Back to Ryan and Meredith.
Thanks very much.
And that is about all the time we have for this week's show.
And it certainly was a busy one, ranging from ice on Lake Superior to how the cold weather that we've been seeing lately impacts retail.
And at least Hunter had some better news for us, that it may not be so far below normal like we have been lately.
That's very true. Thank you very much for joining us this week. And by the way, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to see each week's episode as well. I'm Ryan Breton.
And I'm Meredith Fish. And remember, we won't be here next week, but join us after Thanksgiving for our next episode.
Now, we wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, and we look forward to seeing you next time up in the air.